Welcome to TWIN BUSCH Germany, your competent specialist since 1997 in professional vehicle workshop equipment, with a corporate headquarters in Germany and 9 other branches in 7 countries, as well as over 40 sales partners worldwide. We are one of the leading manufacturers of automotive lifts, tire balancers, and tire mounting machines. My name is Tweenie, and today we are here to show you how to assemble your TWIN BUSCH 242A automotive lift. Welcome to the test booth, presented by TWIN BUSCH Germany. Before beginning the assembly process, you should consider the position in which you will be placing your TWIN BUSCH automotive lift. First, you will want to decide where you would like to position the main column that houses the control and motor unit. Keep in mind, the position in which you place this column is where you will be operating your automotive lift. On this side, you will need some space for operation. In addition to where you will be positioning your main column, you will also need to either have a nearby outlet, or optimally lead your power cable upwards towards the ceiling to the nearest power source. The positioning of the main column and secondary column play no role in which direction the vehicle may be driven onto the lift. This is determined by adjusting the position of the long and short carrier arms. You can change the position of the carrier arms to change the direction at which the vehicle may be driven on the automotive lift at any time. It is only important to have enough space in front of the automotive lift to assure that you can properly, safely, and comfortably position the vehicle over the carrier arms. You can begin assembly of your automotive lift by opening the motor box and removing instruction manual. Be sure to carefully read the instruction manual before proceeding to the installation process. Be sure to check all nuts and bolts during assembly to be sure they are tightly fastened. Now we can proceed to remove the outer packaging containing your lift columns. When removing the inner packaging, be sure to protect the side-mounted override plate from falling. Place the override plate near its future resting place after removal. It will serve as a distance measurement of the space required in between the columns. The upper column is the main column to which the motor unit and control box will be mounted later. Remove the first 2 carrier arms from the main column and set them aside. Now you will want to place a suitable device under the foot side of the upper column to relieve the transport frame of the weight for safe unpackaging. Lower the bottom column onto a piece of wood to ensure that the column can be securely removed from the transport frame. Now, lower both columns enough so that the upper column will still have slight tension. Now you can safely remove the transport frame from the first side without scratching the lower column or lowering the upper column. Remove all bolts from the transport frame. Now lift the upper column a little further, and remove the remaining bolts from the opposite side of the transport frame. Now you can move the upper column to its final resting place. Position the main column where you intend to mount it. Be very careful that the columns cannot tip over until you have securely mounted them to the ground. Now remove the box with the smaller parts as well as the two other carrier arms and place them aside. Open the package containing the small parts, and check that nothing is missing. Remove the remaining bolts from the second transport frame. Move the second column to its future location. Place the column upright and roughly align it into its final resting place. Since our test booth already has heavy load anchors installed, we will show you later how to install the anchor bolts. Next step is to lift both carriage slides into the first safety locking position on each column. Now the columns can be adjusted into place using the override plate as a guide, and the heavy-duty anchor bolts can be installed. Since our demonstration facility is already outfitted with heavy-duty anchors, we will show you an example of how to install an anchor bolt. During the anchor bolt installation process, the columns do not need to be moved from position. You can drill through the existing holes on the column footplate. Observe the required depth necessary for installation of the heavy load anchors to ensure proper installation. Drill vertically. Be sure to remove all dust and debris. Strike the heavy load anchor carefully and vertically using a hammer. Prior to tightening the nuts, check your columns to make sure they are correctly aligned. If necessary, you can shim the bottom of the base plate of the column around heavy load anchors to properly level and align your lift. Once the columns are aligned, Tighten the nuts with a torque wrench to 120 Nm. Now remove the steel cables from the columns and lay them out according to the diagram. The steel cables lead up from the carriage around the upper pulley. From there all the way down to the lower column pulley, and from there to the opposite column. Here is the second side. The steel cables are now connected to the two lifting carriages and forms a loop circuit, which forces the carriages to work synchronized. In order to insert the steel cables, rotate the wheel so that the cable is inserted over the flat section of the pulley wheel. Pull the steel cable back through the carriage until the end of the cable is visible. Adjust the first nut on the steel cable, and tighten with the second nut, then pull it back into the carriage. Then repeat the procedure on the other side. Place the long hydraulic hose between the two columns and screw it on the bottom of the hydraulic cylinders. Be careful while threading the hydraulic hose onto the fitting and ensure that it is tightened firmly. Now you can place the override plate into position over the hydraulic hose and steel leveling cables. Now remove the nuts from the two open steel cable ends. Then you can insert the steel leveling cables from below into the carriage slide mounting hole and tighten with the second nut. Now proceed to open the control box and remove the installation screws. Also included is the limit switch, which limits the slides from exceeding maximum height restrictions. Install your control box on the main column. Before the limit switch is installed, the arm should be adjusted slightly longer. Remove the mounting screws from the limit switch and install the switch as shown in the top of the main column. The roller on the switch should point diagonally forward. Route the switch wire through the channel inside the lift. Route the cable down into the control box. Connect the limit switch connector to the identically labeled opposite connector. Next, mount the motor unit. Remove the motor unit from the box which has already been previously opened earlier. The required screws for the installment are included in the box of small parts. Fit loosely 2 bolts left and right in the top 2 holes of the mounting plate on the motor. Use the plastic ring, spring washer and the nut. Now you can hang the motor on the main post. Loosely adjust the nuts. You can tighten later. Fit the other 2 screws with spacers, spring washers and nuts in the bottom holes of the motor unit mounting plate. Now you may tighten the screws with the suitable tools. Please note the following electrical installation should only be done by a qualified electrician. Connect the motor unit to the control box. Unscrew the cable grommet and remove the rubber gasket. Pull the loose part of the cable grommet over the cable and add the rubber seal. Insert the motor cable into the control box and wire it as described in the instructions. Tighten the hydraulic hose connector on the motor unit. And remove the protection cap from the hydraulic cylinder connection. Attach the second hydraulic hose, and connect the motor unit to the cylinder. Attach the hydraulic hose and install the protection cover provided. Now tighten the connections on the hydraulic hose with a suitable wrench. Now the hydraulic reservoir can be filled with up to 10 liters of hydraulic oil. Be sure not to fill past the displayed mark on reservoir max. You can now install the front panel back onto the control box. Now, you can install the door guards located in smaller parts box. Now it is time to mount the carrier arms. You will need 2 carrier arm pins per side. You will need 1 long and 1 short carrier arm per column. We recommend that you fasten the locking pin for the carrier arm with the circlips provided. Insert the first arm and install it with a locking pin. Observe the correct arrangement of the arms from short to long, and from front to back. The shorter arms lift the heavier side of the vehicle. This is usually where the vehicle engine block is located. Since we intend on driving the cars forward onto the automotive lift, we mount the short carrying arms towards the wall. Mount the long arm on the opposite side of which short arm is mounted. Insert the adjustable lifting points. Ensure that the turntable mount platform is correctly seated. Mount the foot protectors to the support arms. Make sure that the foot protectors are installed so that the screws are on top of the rail. wire, or plug in the main plug that powers your automotive lift and turn on the main switch located on the side of control box. Be sure that red emergency shut-off button is not engaged. Now you may finally test your automotive lift for the first time. Be careful when raising for the first time until you have adjusted the steel cables, not to contact the limit switch, as this will deactivate your lift. You should raise and let down your lift a few times to completely bleed the system. Finally, fit the safety rings on the arm bolts to prevent them from working loose. For the final step to adjusting cable tension, install the locking nut onto the threaded end of the steel cables. Adjusting the cable tension, a must for perfect synchronization. The cable tension is decisive for good synchronism. Use a 24mm wrench to loosen the nuts. We use a tire lever to tension the cables. Start with the post opposite the motor side. This side usually just needs to be adjusted once to get your base tension. All further adjustments are now made exclusively on the main post. Since the leveling cables are connected to one another, tensioning the main side now automatically leads to tensioning on the opposing side. Raise your lift upwards and pay attention to the clacking sound of the safety locks. The side with the hydraulic pump should click first, then the opposite side. The reason for this is that the main side has the shortest path to the hydraulic unit. The opposing side is forced to cooperate by the steel leveling cables. Remember, before adjusting tension, to lower the slides in the next locking position using the hydraulic pressure release lever on control box. When the locks click at the same time, the optimum cable tension has been achieved. Now take the wrench again, and lock the upper nuts on both sides. This completes the adjustment of the steel cable tensioning process. Be sure to tighten all bolts and nuts and hydraulic hose fittings on your automotive lift before placing your lift into operation to ensure proper installation and maximum performance. We wish you lots of fun and good times with your Twin Busch automotive lift. Enjoy, and thank you for choosing Twin Busch.